Hello and welcome to the show where we explore the forces shaping society from the streets to the halls of power. I'm Dashran Yohan. In the month of April, Palestinians observe two very important days. The first is Palestinian Child's Day, which takes place on the 5th and was established in 1995 by the late Palestinian liberation activist and politician Yasser Arafat to highlight the rights and welfare of Palestinian children. April is also the month of Palestinian Prisoners' Day to honor Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli detention, in which there are thousands. So on today's show, we are going to be talking about the importance of both those days with Baha Hilo, who is a Palestinian educator and activist currently in Malaysia. Baha, welcome back to the show. How are you today?
Thank you so much. Feel good and excited for just another interview with you.
I'm very eager to have this conversation with you as well. The last time I spoke to you on air was in December 2023. It's been close to 3 years now. A lot has happened since then. How have you been and how are you reflecting on the past 3 years?
The past 3 years have been like just one block. I never in my worst thoughts, I never thought like the genocide would be going on for 3 years. Like December 2023 was right in the beginning of the genocide, and the level of sadism and like murderous behavior and savagery of the state of Israel was already impossible to fathom or to just even make sense of it. But then for the past 3 years, the state of Israel have been like expanding on that violence, like murdering Palestinians right, left, and center, like going full on genocidal. No apology, no regrets, no stop. The countries that have been asking the state of Israel to stop have turned out to be like complicit, with that genocide, and the conditions of genocide are still in place.
So you've been in Malaysia for the past several months. What have you been up to? Because I know you help out some NGOs as well. What's that been like?
Okay, actually, like being in Malaysia in December 2023 was probably the only positive thing I could do during the first year of genocide. So that experience inspired me to actually, instead of just being subject to genocide and also talking about it in real time to my computer with many audience, listening online, I decided to just hit the road and go around to do lectures on Palestine. So in October 2024, I started in Poland, and then from there went to Germany, Luxembourg, Italy, the north of Spain in Catalonia, and then crossed the Atlantic, went through the US from Boston and the East Coast to Portland, just speaking about Palestine until I got really tired of explaining genocide as it's happening and why it's important for people to express rejection to genocide by all means necessary. And then because it started in Malaysia, I was like, okay, it's not safe for me to go home. I understood that Malaysia would help Palestinians who find it not safe to go home, help them stay for a bit until it's safe to go back. I got in contact with some friends and they're like, yeah, just come back. And I've been staying here. I'm not allowed to work, so it's not work for me. Just being able to live my life in a place that is free of Israelis. One of the most disgusting things I would go through in the West or in countries that have diplomatic relations with the state of Israel is having defenders, supporters, and beneficiaries of Israeli criminal behavior trying to just reduce genocide to a debatable matter, which is disgusting. But as a beneficiary of Israeli criminal behavior, you have to be disgusting by default. But those things do not exist in Malaysia. If anything, people do not reduce the genocide to a debatable matter here, and there are no Israelis. Malaysia is a very successful example of a successful country that imposes like diplomatic sanctions on the state of Israel, which is an example that has to be generalized.
You know, actually, that's a very interesting point, right? Because while I do personally think we should be doing more, I don't think enough people appreciate that Malaysia's starting point is what many progressives in other countries are pushing for, right? Where Malaysia is and has always been is that we do not recognize the state of Israel. Our passports don't allow us to go to Israel, and that's because we don't even have a Israeli embassy in the country, right? We just don't recognize the state. I want to talk about Palestinian Child's Day. What exactly is it?
So, Palestinian Children's Day was added to the Palestinian national calendar back in 1995 when the Palestinian Authority, or the government of the Palestinian Authority, signed the CRC, which is the International Convention on Children's Rights. And that happened in April 5th, 1995. And since then, as a signatory of that a convention, the Palestinian Authority or the government of Palestine would have to play a role in the protection of Palestinian children. We have that day since then, or since the year 1995. And now what has been happening since 1995 is nor the Palestinian government and Palestinian law enforcement have been able to or allowed to provide any form of protection for Palestinian children from the main eliminator of Palestinian children, which is the state of Israel. The state of Israel have shown year in, year out its obsession with murdering Palestinians. The public opinion of the state of Israel, you have Israelis, that would chant there are no schools left in Gaza because there are no children to go to school. Palestinian children should not grow up to be traumatized. They should not be allowed to grow up at all. You have this kind of sadistic form of savagery that is entertained by Israeli public opinion, by Israeli army, where it's rooted on the murder of Palestinians. And that's not only a talk. Year in, year out, the state of Israel have proven that it can go above and beyond a human logic in the elimination of Palestinian children. For example, when we're talking about murder as one of the parts of the nature of the state of Israel, more than 35% of victims of Israel's bombardment and violence, we can estimate that nearly 100,000 people were murdered directly as a result of Israel's military actions. Israeli criminals have got away or are getting away with murder of 100,000 people. That's 5% of the population of Gaza alone, right? Between 35 to 40% of the victims who were murdered directly were between the age of 1 day and 18. Here we're talking about just direct murder. One of the things I was shocked about in when we met in December was how far Israeli criminals can go. And they would go as far as going into an incubator sections in hospitals when we had hospitals in Gaza, and literally force mothers and nurses and doctors out of those sections of premature children, got the power supply and watch children die and rot, and going on from there all the way to what happened a couple of days ago when literally in one of the tents that was turned into a classroom, a child was shot in the head right in front of her classmates. Children have to go to school, right? We have no schools left. Nearly 293 schools were, more than 90% of schools were completely destroyed. like the idea that there are no schools for 3 years. Children's education is a right. So the schools are bombed, school kids are murdered, teachers are murdered, and it just like that circle goes on and on. We have nearly 55,000 orphans, bringing up the number of orphans in Gaza to like more than 85,000 children. Nearly half of those kids like lost both parents.
What is childhood like for a Palestinian?
So children are just being children, you know, like you cannot be broken, you know, like you think this is part of like norms of life. Like for me, whether it's for me or for my nephews and nieces, because the genocide has been going on for like nearly 3 years, day in, day out, being like part of their life, it just like shapes their way of thinking. And of course, like the children naturally like do not accept injustice, you know. But like, what do children want? Like, children are curious. Children are like nothing will stop them from going around. It's like, yes, when they're playing and the state of Israel like bombs their playground, they might like not go play on that spot. So they are scared that they will meet the fate of their brothers, sisters, friends, and so on. But they will go play somewhere else. Children just love to stand in line, collect, you know, because they're like the state of Israel is starving like the population there, and having like children helping children, like, you know, this form of purity in survival. This is one of the things like I do see, because like as a human being, like it's part of your nature to look out for those who can't. Seeing like those acts of solidarity, those acts of support, those acts of like help, and that just like one of the things. Of course, like you can never blame a child for missing their murdered parents. The brokenness that is going on is impossible to actually think about. But like through that brokenness, because like you as a child cannot be broken for a very long time. Like you have to figure out ways of survival. You have to find like points of joy here or there. Like you steal those moments. So like children are being children, seeing like the wreckage being turned into like some kind of playgrounds, seeing like helping with, you know, clearing through some of the rubble in their schools in order to have a classroom, setting up a tent in order to have a class to learn, whether it's math or science or Arabic. Or before 1995, we have an organization that was committed to protection of children. It's called Defense for Children International. Now that organization had to shut down because it was deemed to be a terrorist organization by the state of Israel. So like you have the pedophiles, the rapists, the criminals,
The Epstein class.
yeah, the Epstein class, you know, considering the terrorists, considering Defense for Children International to be a terrorist organization. The criminals are considered, you know, the Israeli Defense Force. Another thing from April 1948, before the State of Israel was even invented, is the Palestinian Child House, or the Palestinian Child Home, which is one of the oldest organizations we have in Jerusalem. How was it invented? How was it established? The founders of the State of Israel marched into a small community near Jerusalem called Deir Yassin. And through the 8th and 9th of April of 1948, like a few weeks before the declaration of the establishment of the State of Israel in Palestine, you had adults, Israeli adults, Zionist adults, European white people, carried out their arms, and they took their time murdering Palestinians in the town of Deir Yassin. And they rounded up some 80 kids and dumped them in the old city of Jerusalem. And then a family took them and established what became known as the Palestine Children's House in Jerusalem. So like the Israelis have been working on terrorizing Palestinians for the entire existence.
I know sometimes it's kind of strange to ask quote unquote fun questions in incredibly dark times, but just to understand perhaps just a little bit of more nuances of, Palestine and its children. What do Palestinian children like to play? Like, do you remember from your childhood or even like currently your nephews and nieces?
Right now, like everybody is stuck to their phones, like everyone. Like if you manage to get a phone out of your children's hand, like that will be amazing. Every generation, like children are like outsmart their parents all the time. In my childhood, like the game we would play is like soldiers and resistance. So the bullies in our neighborhood will play the Israeli soldiers, and the kind ones will play resistance.
This is like other kids in other countries playing police and thief, except we are just emulating video games and bad boys on TV, and y'all are emulating real life.
Yeah, and like for us, it's like it is real life. But we also like enjoy a good game of football. Like football is a very popular game. Marbles is like that's at least for my childhood. It's just like whatever you have at your disposal. You can be creative. Group singing is one of the things that we used to do when the Israelis like cut down the power supply. It actually depends on like what we have in our disposal, but definitely like kick the ball and like playing those like games where pretending to be adults. In some places like language itself, like Arabic language is fun language, so like many kids would like learn how to recite, like play games with like reciting poetry, and who knows better or who knows more, tag. You have a lot of kids, but like to play tag you need to be aware like no Israeli soldiers are watching, because you can be murdered just for running. So tag is a game you play when soldiers are not watching. It's a different world when Israeli criminals are not watching, because I've seen it happening like in a lot of places, in a lot of corners in Palestine. A child who's joyful is very offensive to Israeli criminals. I've seen it happening like they will beat you only for laughing or for just having a good time.
So, Baha, what is Palestinian Prisoners Day?
Like Palestinian Prisoners Day is a day that was added to our calendar back in 1974 after like a prisoner's swap. One Israeli soldier that was captured by the Palestinian National Party or Liberation Party in 1969 was exchanged by like a Palestinian that was arrested by the State of Israel or captured by the State of Israel in 1965, I guess. And from that day on, Palestinians have honored that prisoner's swap with the commemoration of April 17th being the Palestinian Prisoners Day. So that's why it's April 17 of every year. So this issue is like covering the entirety of Palestine. So like you have Palestinian prisoners, Palestinians are fragmented under 4 different Israeli legal systems. So the so-called Arab Israelis, like if any of them would post anything against the genocide, they will be imprisoned through civil, laws. So Palestinians in Jerusalem, Palestinians in Nazareth, for example, they're subject to Israeli civil discriminatory laws.
Right.
While Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and in Gaza, nearly 5 to 6 million of us are subject to Israeli military court system. So if you are subject to Israeli civil system, like you are arrested for something as simple as posting a Facebook or posting in social media in a way to be critical of Israel's savagery and Israel's fascistic behavior. So you have that captured population where thousands of Palestinians have been locked up for organizing something as simple as a protest or a sit-in against the genocide. And then you have Palestinians and Israeli military courts. So that's what the focus is on. Since 1967, more than 1 million sentences were produced by those Israeli military courts. So according to the Israeli military rule, Palestinian from the age of 14 onwards is considered an adult.
No way. 14.
Yeah, 14. So if you're at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and you break any of the 1,000 plus military orders, then you'll be arrested. You'll be standing before a military judge in a military court, and you'll be sentenced. Essentially, like anything is deemed, anything related to your existence as a Palestinian is doomed to be political, right? So any Palestinian can be held for participating in a political activity, and then you're arrested and you're sent to jail or sent to court. The sentence rate is 99.7%. So there are no innocent Palestinians out of those 1 million plus sentences. So it goes on from the age of 14 onwards. Like we're talking about nearly 40% of the male population that exists in the occupied West Bank and Gaza. They went through that. The state of Israel has more than 14 torture centers, have been like locking Palestinians in those like torture centers. It's like your death is not the end of it, because the state of Israel can keep your body. Once again, it's that level of sadism.
So I was reading about this, which boggled the mind, this particular concept, and it's called administrative detention. What is that?
When you are kidnapped from your family's house or from any of the 900 plus military checkpoints that are placed throughout the West Bank, thrown in jail, you are not allowed to know what you are being held for. Your lawyer is not being allowed to know what you are being held for. Your judge is not allowed to know. Like the military judge gets a piece of paper saying classified evidence, and it's renewable sentence of 3 or 6 months, So you can be held indefinitely.
And many people are.
Many, like more than, like almost half, like nearly 3,450 Palestinians, like are held under this. So you are not allowed to know why you are being held, and it's just like mind-boggling in a way. Like even when you are released, you are not told what you were held for, so there is no way you can avoid. Like sometimes, let's say you were held for throwing rocks. That when you're released, you should not throw rocks.
Right.
But when you're held and not allowed to know what you are being held for, and then you are released and you are not allowed to know what you were. It's like, what is it you are going to avoid doing?
Right.
One dear colleague, like somebody I went to university with, like he was held in administrative detention like 8 times, and he would always like go into hunger strike, literally starving himself to death in order to get sentenced. Just tell me what I'm being held for. And his last hunger strike lasted for 80. Like he went in hunger strike 6 times in 8 sentences, and the last one was 84 days, where he was found dead in the Israelis stole his body, and up until today they are keeping his body. They are keeping the body of Walid Khalid, who's like 17 years old.
Very recently, Israel passed a death penalty law, pretty much allowing the state to hang those convicted of terror offenses within an accelerated 90-day period. But this law only applies to Palestinians. It doesn't apply to Israelis. Do you think this is significant?
I mentioned first Palestinian prisoner that was involved in a military prisoners swap,
Right.
in 1974. His name is Mohammed Hijazi Bakr. He was sentenced to execution. So the execution law is not something that is new. What is happening right now, in order to protect Israeli criminals who murder Palestinians in prison, we just need to legalize murder of Palestinian prisoners. It's not like there's no murder of Palestinians. No, the state of Israel have murdered 100,000 Palestinians and more without having an execution law. So what is happening is like legalizing murder. When they legalize murder of Palestinians, it means that the law is controlled by murderous criminals. If Israel will start executing Palestinian prisoners after this law, then what can we call all the 350 plus Palestinians that were murdered outside the execution law? So it's some kind of media circus that is taken out of context. Just say like the state of Israel might start executing Palestinians. It's just like, once again, the state of Israel, it has a legal system, a very comprehensive legal system that aims at the legal protection of every single Israeli rapist, every single Israeli criminal, every single Israeli soldier that is committing genocide, every single Israeli politician that have been actively calling and doing genocide. So the entire legal system of the state of Israel is built to protect criminals.
So there's a lot going on. Things don't seem to be getting better on the surface. In fact, it seems to be getting worse. How do you think about moving forward? What does the next step look like to you?
I view injustice as an invitation for rejection. It doesn't matter how long it lasts. What matters is how long I last. One of the main points of oppression is to get you to start questioning your value as an individual. I've seen so many people feeling defeated because of genocide, and it's I'm glad you're not a mother. I'm glad you're not a father, a brother, a son of somebody who was murdered by the state of Israel, because you look at those of us who just buried their loved ones and they refuse to be submissive, and you take them as inspiration rather than as poor victims. No, allow Palestinian survivors of Israeli criminal behavior to inspire you. Allow them to do so. What to do each and every this is one of the things that get people really frustrated with me, because I cannot tell people what to do. What I can say always is that express your rejection to Israel's savagery and criminal behavior by the means you know. If those means are as simple as a prayer, keep doing at least one prayer a day. Do your wishes, do your du'as, just keep Palestinian victims of Israeli criminal behavior in your heart and mind. And then with the practice of those rituals, you will be shown a way, you will be given opportunities to express your rejection verbally and physically, but submitting to injustice, submitting to this dark reality is not an option. It's actually practical to believe that if you fight you might lose, but if you don't, you've already lost. When there is evil, the least we can do is reject it and express that rejection by all means necessary and all means that are available to us. So what do we do individually and hopefully collectively is that in every opportunity to reject those who are supporters, defenders, and beneficiaries of Israeli criminal behavior, we need to express our rejection to those I would say supporters, defenders, and profiteers of it.
Baha, before I let you go, I want to ask one more thing, because there are currently protests in Malaysia organized by Gaga America and other NGOs, and it's concerning a particular weapons exhibition. So DSA and NATSAC Asia 2026 is a biannual weapons exhibition. It's held at the Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Centre, MITEC, in Kuala Lumpur. This year it is ongoing right now, actually, from the 20th of April to the 23rd of April. and protesters are gathered outside the building, and they are protesting these companies, right? Because protesters say the organizers have invited companies, weapons manufacturers that are complicit in the genocide in Gaza. What do you make of this? Because on the one hand, this is a country that is very pro-Palestine, and I think that is the being on the right side of history. But on the other hand, you do see instances like these. Do you think there's a contradiction there?
I don't want to put it in a contradictory terms. Like Malaysia provides me with safety as a Palestinian, and it provides many Palestinians with a form of safety. And we need to remember that 100,000 to 200,000. Imagine the estimation. It's between 100,000 to 200,000 like tons of explosives that were thrown on Palestinians in Gaza, enabling the genocide. Every single company that provided surveillance, provided the bombs, provided the GPS systems, provided the helicopter, provided the F-16, provided like the seat that an Israeli pilot sat on as he launched a strike that destroyed like the lives of an entire neighborhood. All those companies are war profiteers. All those companies are mercenaries. And the way I understand law here is like there is power for law in this country, and there's freedom of speech. I guess like we need to stop being naive and stupid and looking at those war profiteers as if they were like corporations or companies, but war profiteers. The law in Malaysia criminalizes war profiteers and criminalizes mercenaries. I see their presence in this country to be an opportunity for law enforcement to arrest each and every one of those companies and apply the law against them. Like you have a bunch of companies that have profited, from genocide. And what they are coming to sell you is, weapons that proven to show success in committing genocide. But once again, one of the most beautiful things and inspiring things I find in Malaysia is like total rejection to Israeli criminal behavior. And this is an opportunity to express governmental rejection to Israeli criminal behavior because the criminals are here.
Much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. Like I really love being part of your show, brother.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
Likewise. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.